Greetings, everybody. As you're aware, we had the scholar strike on September 9th and 10th, and this meant that we have elected not to hold classes in order to give students time and space to participate in the anti-Black racism teach-ins that are happening. And so this is really an act of solidarity for folks who are working in the area of anti-Black racism and the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's a way to honor the mandate of our school and the more general mandate of social work. So I hope that you had a chance to participate in those activities. I am going to review the core syllabus, which was our primary focus for our meeting in social policy this week, so that I could orient you to the class. So I'm now doing this as an asynchronous video lecture, and I hope that you'll find the material interesting. So the lecture that you're listening to now is in lieu of the class that was scheduled via Zoom for September the 9th for 1 hour. So SW701 is critical frameworks in social policy, or social policy critical frameworks. It is a one semester course lasting 13 weeks, and it's offered in a combined delivery format. So the first thing I just wanted to talk about was the fact that a significant portion of your class is done online as an asynchronous model of teaching. So that means that you can do them modules at your own time, at your own pace. You don't have to do it together with other students in the class. And so this offers obviously some advantages, but there are some challenges to online learning. And so I always like to spend a few minutes talking about who does better online when we're talking about student success. So there's often a myth, and certainly my own research into digital literacy has demonstrated the continued acceptance of the myth that if you're a younger person, you're more technologically savvy and therefore more prepared and better able to participate in an online course. Guess what? That's not what the literature and the research into online learning proves. It actually proves that mature students, adult learners who are returning to education after a gap, are actually more successful at online learning than younger students. And that is because they have a number of life skills that work for them in the process of participating in a self-directed learning process. So the research also tells us that students who engage frequently for shorter periods of time, for example, 20 or 30 minutes twice a day, do much better than students who do a concentrated blitz, let's say, into their online courses. So if you do 20 to 30 minutes twice a day, every day, versus 12 hours on the weekend, you'll do much better in the course, because part of the art of online learning is completing the small pieces of work, because the courses are carved up into smaller sub-modules within each week's module. And you'll certainly see that's present in our outline on Avenue to Learn. We also know that people who have strong written communication skills tend to do better online. I've tried to compensate a little bit for that by using Flipgrid rather than having you type or write responses. People who are more self-motivated and self-disciplined tend to do better in terms of their online learning outcomes. And again, I think that might have a little bit to do with life experience, your aspirations versus acknowledging that you might not be great at some things and developing ways to motivate yourself to do things you don't want to do. And also that people who are more inclined towards thinking before they respond, so learning to react rather than to learning not to react rather than to react out of some kind of emotional response to something that they have heard. And people who are reflexive, so they try to think about what their desired outcome was, how it relates to the goals of the course, and then to change their responses or activities in response to their understanding of what's happening, so kind of a praxis loop. People who have better organizational skills or good organizational skills also do better in online courses, because there tends to be multiple pieces. And people who are assertive and can deal with problems when they come up also do better. So, of course, the school's philosophy towards social work is something that shapes all of the courses that we offer in the program, and certainly the school's statement of philosophy, which you'll see on the screen now, is what's shaping the way in which this course has been developed. This course was originally developed by Rachel Zhao, who now teaches in Aging and Society, and who previously taught in globalization studies, but who's a member of social work, designed this course. And since she developed it and handed it off to me about 5 years ago, I've been slowly making changes because, of course, policy changes and the world changes. So what we're going to focus on as I look at the course description is the idea of the contemporary welfare state. So what is happening now in social policy, and how was that developed through particular processes and mechanisms that are in some ways designed to pursue equity and social justice for individuals, but also for families, communities, and society as a whole. So we'll talk a little bit about those value systems. We're also going to think about the relationship between contemporary social policy and historical phenomena. We're going to talk about the way in which politics shape social policy and the way in which globalization plays a significant role in social policy. Once upon a time, we used to talk a lot about Canadian social policy and national social policy, and we know now the more globalized the world becomes, the less there is a specific and unique Canadian social policy, but rather there is a global social policy that we are encountering when we're concerning ourselves with what's happening even within our national borders. The course explores key concepts such as contemporary issues in social policy, contemporary theories that shape social welfare and social policy making, both nationally and internationally. And we're also going to look at the intersection of welfare restructuring and phenomena happening at the global and national level around socioeconomic conditions. So how does capitalism and global capitalism shape the realities that we're facing? How does the economic slowdown of COVID-19 result in a shift in social policies? Perhaps we're not seeing those quite yet, but I'm telling you we are going to. So we want to make these connections between social policy and the underlying influencing factors at the global and local level, including those economic factors. But we also want to think about social policy and social work practice. A lot of students have said to me, I'm not really into social policy. And even though as a social worker you might not be into social policy, believe me, social policy is into you and it's into the work that you do. Absolutely everything that social workers do, unless they're working in a private practice and they're dealing specifically with clients who are paying out of their own pocket, you are definitely shaping yourself by social policy. And even in that context, regulation and registration in the college, both of which are legislated through social policy processes, are still present. So we're going to look at some of the ways in which policy is applied and how it affects different social groups in unequal ways. So some people are more legislated, some people are less legislated, some people have unintended consequences as a result of particular social policies. We're going to think about those things. We're also going to think critically about social issues like poverty, inequality, and social exclusion, and how social policy relates to these experiences. And we're also going to think about the future of social welfare policy and how various actors in the policy-making process shape those future possibilities. Canada's relationship to the United Nations plays a significant role in shaping policy, but we also have an influence on the United Nations and shape policy at the global level. For example, the population health approach was developed by a group of Canadian economists, unfortunately not a group of Canadian healthcare providers, but rather economists. And so that policy has certainly shaped healthcare at the global level. So we are influenced, but we also influence. We're going to think about the role of government, citizens, and we're using the term citizen as in a very non-specific way. I'm not talking about people who have some kind of legal status or standing in a country. I'm talking about people who are served by and serve state authorities, or people who might be found in proximity to what we might understand as a nation state. We're also talking about society at large and the notion of civil society, which is this understanding of people being participatory actors within the social fabric. And we're also going to think about social workers and how social workers are meant to be working to pursue social justice and human rights at the local and global levels, and how we play a role in shaping social policy. So that's kind of the overview of the course. If you look at the course objectives, it's important to remember that course objectives are generally described as the outcomes that a student should leave with when they have completed the full course. So you should leave here understanding more about the dynamics of social policy making and the perspectives that shape the way in which policy is created and understood. You should leave here being able to examine social policy issues that relate to globalization and the restructuring that is necessary to make globalization happen. You should leave the course with an appreciation for connections among social issues and social policy and social work practice. How are social issues made and understood? How is social policy made and responding to social issues? And how does social work practice flow out of what we understand as social issues and the policies designed to respond to them? You should leave here being able to critically understand the relationship between social policy and its effects on people in their lived everyday life, every day and every night life. And you should be able to explore the strategies of social policy and its response in the changing contexts that are happening. So before March, before we had a pandemic, we might not have imagined that we would have had something like the CERB, which is a guaranteed income supplement provided to all people who have lost at least 30% of their income. So we might not have imagined that the Canadian government would do such a thing, but the changing context of COVID-19 and mass unemployment, layoffs, and restrictions on work meant that governments had to do things that we might not have imagined as possible. So hopefully you'll be able to think critically about those things. So those are our 5 course objectives, and hopefully you'll find them useful for your own practice and also for your academic work. For example, your thesis or your critical leadership project. Moving on, I'll talk a little bit about the course format, although I did start with some of this information. This course is being offered in a hybrid online delivery format that includes both synchronous, so meeting together, and asynchronous, online work at your own pace material. We are going to meet weekly, most weeks. There might be an exception or two, depending on what we're working on. We're going to meet weekly via Zoom from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. I have created an enduring, ongoing Zoom link, which is provided for you on Avenue to Learn. You should be able to use the same link every week, but it's technology, so something weird could happen. If the link changes, you'll see that in announcements, and then the link will change on A2L going forward. The online asynchronous material is presented and includes things like e-lectures, engagement activities, podcasts, video materials, scholarly readings, chapters, and so on. Those are all available for you on A2L, including the links to readings. Where there's no library link to the reading, you'll find a PDF or other copy of the reading. Sometimes library links change. You have the citations for the material. You'll have to go onto the library databases and download the material if the link breaks down. I don't check or replace the links after the course starts. So what's there is what's there, with the exception of one reading which hasn't come in yet. And when I get the PDF, I will upload it. As I said, there are readings almost every week, and these are available online through A2L. There's also one book that you need to purchase. You cannot, that's a cannot, buy this book through the library or through the university bookstore. Because the bookstore is not open, I thought it was somewhat redundant to put this book in the bookstore for you to buy. It's cheaper for you to buy it directly from the publisher. The cost of the book is about $25, including the shipping. It's a small book. There are used copies of it around. If you know somebody who took the course 2 years ago, they may have a copy for sale. Students did not use the book last year. We replaced that unit with the election. And hopefully we won't have to replace any units this year with the election, although that is a possibility. Additional readings are also provided on A2L via Avenue. If there's something I think is interesting, I sometimes post in each module, you might also like to read, ... You're not required to read those things, or just things I think you might find interesting. And at the end of the course, you'll also find a module that contains supplemental readings, things that we've read in the past, or things that I think are relevant to the course, just for your ease. Of course, the library is full of other great stuff. There's no way I could put everything about policy in this course. There's thousands of other things you could read if you're so inclined. All right, we're going to move on to the assignments. So I've already posted a PowerPoint about the Twitter assignment. I'm not going to go through the Twitter assignment here. It's an individual assignment. It's worth 20%. It's an ongoing assignment that you'll do week by week, but it also has a reflection which is due on the last day of class. See the PowerPoint onto the Twitter assignment for additional details. You'll have to do a group assignment called the COVID-19 concept map. You've already been enrolled in a group on A2L, and you can find that under groups. You'll have 4 or 5 people in your group, and together you will work on a concept map, which is a visual representation of analysis that you will undertake. It's due on Tuesday, October the 20th, which is just after the reading week, and it's worth 15% of your course grade, and all group members will receive the same mark. If you have 4 members in your group, you'll use 4 articles. If you have 5 members in your group, you'll use 5 articles. Basically, you'll look at some assigned readings and also do some library research to develop a concept map presenting an analysis of COVID-19 related policy materials relevant to an area of interest or topic that the group will decide on. So you could look at income support programs developed in Canada under COVID-19. You could look at childcare provisions in Ontario related to COVID-19. You could do just about anything you want, and I've included a sample online for you to look at, a concept map that I created just to give you an idea. When you've completed your concept map, you'll share your concept map via Flipgrid. So 1 or 2 people in your group, or all of you if you feel very passionate about it, can do a presentation on the concept map explaining the meaning of the concept map to the group, and you'll have 10 minutes to complete that. You'll also provide a copy of the concept map to me via A2L, and there'll be a portal provided to you to submit the assignment on the 20th. We can talk more about this when we meet together. The final paper in this course is the policy analysis related to your thesis or project topic. It's worth 40% of your grade, and it's an individual assignment. It will be submitted via A2L, and Turnitin will be used to scan the document for plagiarism. I know some people don't like that, but what I would also say is it's a great learning tool for you, because what it also shows you are the strengths and the weaknesses of your use of citation. It will also show you how popular the articles are that you're using. And if you're trying to be innovative, you might not want to cite the same articles that everybody else does. The length of the paper is between 12 and 15 pages, which is approximately 4,000 to 5,000 words in APA format. And that's APA 7, which is our newest version. It's due on Friday, December the 11th at 4 o'clock via Avenue to Learn. The reason it's due at 4 o'clock is because the help desk closes at 5 o'clock, and if you have trouble with Avenue, you don't want to have a late assignment because you couldn't upload it. In this assignment, you'll complete a scholarly paper which presents an analysis of policies or policy relevant to your MSW thesis or your CL placement or project. You're going to include a minimum of 6 scholarly sources in your paper. You're going to choose a minimum of 2 scholarly articles or chapters that we used in this course. If there are more that are relevant to your particular topic, then you can use more. The remainder, 4 or a few less than 4, will be sought out through library research, and you're going to have training on library research in the course. so that you can access the necessary policy materials and policy analysis materials related to your topic. You can also include popular support like a newspaper article, a magazine article, or a podcast to support your work, but this isn't required. And a popular source like a newspaper article, YouTube video, magazine article, podcast does not count towards the 6 scholarly sources. So sometimes someone wants to write about, let's say, a lack of affordable housing. They find a great article profiling someone who has been waiting on the waiting list for 7 years for housing. And they use that to frame the situation that they want to discuss in their paper. This is great. It's an excellent way to organize a social policy paper, but the newspaper article that they use to frame the topic does not count towards their 6 scholarly sources. It's a big assignment. I always suggest that people start early. I also invite people to consult with me about framing their topic in a reasonable size. I had one student try to write about the entire Indian Act. Didn't work so well. Doesn't fit in 15 pages. You probably need to select a subsection. But at the same time, I had somebody who wanted to write about a very specific issue related to the new Cannabis Act. And it was so specific and so new, they couldn't find any material and they were very frustrated. So if you're worried about how you're framing your topic, book a time with me to chat and we can help find a middle ground. You'll also have a series of engagement activities worth 25% of your final grade, and these are ongoing through the course. You've already done a couple of them. You had to do a course syllabus quiz, and you had to do that very fun. What do you remember from your undergrad social policy quiz? These kinds of activities are scattered throughout the course, and you're invited to sometimes also to respond to posts that have been made by other members of your peer group. And so all of these will receive certain marks that are assigned to them. The idea is to support your application of what you're learning and to get you actively involved in the course and to reward you for doing things like reading the syllabus. The assignments might include a self-evaluation quiz, an oral reflection, a group assignment where you have to talk about something and then summarize what you talked about, online presentations, and so on. The engagement activities details and instructions, as well as the mark values for each module's activities, are provided in Avenue to Learn. And the assignments must be completed in the module assigned. So you have to complete them in the 7 days between when they're assigned and when that module ends. Assignments completed may be required to access new course modules. So you know that you have to complete the 2 quizzes in the pre-course module in order to get into the next module, module 2. So hopefully folks will find this amusing and they'll enjoy working through those ideas. Now I'd like to take a few minutes to go over some of the university policies. The first policy I'd like to talk about is the Academic Accommodation of Students with Disabilities policy. So we have a Student Accessibility Services department at the university. They're great people. They want to help you. They want you to get your needs met, and I want to meet your needs. So if you require an accommodation, it's good to register with them because they may be able to help you organize or coordinate things like due dates and other resources that might be helpful. They might also be able to get you some access to some financial resources for materials or supplies that would help you. Please register with the service if you feel that you have a need. Accommodations for students don't necessarily have to be permanent accommodations. If you are having a surgery or something's happened, if you say hurt your eye or had some other situation that was a temporary situation, but you needed assistance, SAS can also help you with that. So their contact information is here in the slide. It's also in the syllabus. We also have the Riso academic accommodations, religious, indigenous, and spiritual observances. So there's a possibility we might have to adjust the times of the Zoom meetings in order to meet Riso accommodations. If you require accommodation in relationship to the time of class, please let me know. I'd really prefer to change the time of the meeting because we have some time to do that rather than have people be late or leave early because we only have an hour together and it's not a lot of time. If you do need accommodations under Riso, just let me know. We'll figure it out. There is a form that you can fill out. The instructions are here. There's also more instructions on the university website, so please have a look at them. But again, if you have a need, just let me know and we can work around it. The only thing we can't work around is the final due dates for marks that I have from the University Department of Graduate Studies. And even then, we can arrange for an incomplete. But it does require some paperwork and it requires some planning. So try to think ahead rather than us trying to do it retroactively, because it takes more paperwork and more time. The university has a policy on email communications, and that is that you are meant to use your McMaster ID whenever you communicate with me. Students who use Hotmail, Gmail, or whatever other mail you might have, you oftentimes don't get things, the emails go missing, or attachments get blocked by the university firewall. Use the McMaster system. You can forward the McMaster system to your Hotmail, Gmail, or whatever other mail account, and so you won't even know it's seamless. It will just take you about 10 minutes to set it up. You're also going to need your McMaster University email in order to log on to Flipgrid. Flipgrid is set so that it only allows mac.ca students to use it. So if you don't activate that, you won't be able to do some of the engagement assignments, and it's going to be a problem for you. And it's going to be a problem for me. So let's try to resolve it ahead of time. Also, the recording of online meetings and lectures. I'll record all of the Zoom meetings that we have together, and I will post them on Avenue to Learn. If we have a guest who's a guest speaker, I'll ask them permission. And if they give me permission to record, then I'll record and share it. If they don't give me permission to record, I won't record it, obviously, and I won't share it. But that means you can't record it and you can't share it either. I'm going to ask you to please not create your own recordings. We don't need 17 recordings of this course floating around. I'm also going to ask you not to share the recordings that you download with anyone else. Don't post the recordings to websites. Don't share them with other people. Don't send them by email. The recordings of the course are protected by copyright. And so if you do make duplicates or share these, you could be charged under the Copyright Protection Act. You'll notice that in the course outline, there are weekly topics and readings. I do my best to stick to these. Sometimes they do change. You'll notice that sometimes you just have information, like the whole module is, there are no readings assigned, so you're just given some instructions like complete this by 12 midnight. But most weeks you have information about topics and readings. And if you go to A2L, you'll see that there are a number of subsections and additional details. So being present to A2L and checking it more than once a week and checking your email every single day is part of the key to success in an online course. We have Reading Week, October 12th to the 16th, and there are no classes. We'll all be reading. Then I wanted to let you know that the last Zoom meeting is on December the 3rd. The class is planned as an ending session. If something happens that we miss a session, or there's some kind of a cancellation or scheduling issue, then we could be using this class to cover missed content. Please don't plan not to be there. It's important even up to the last session to attend. And the last day of our term this year is December the 9th. So we have about 6 days from our last class till the actual term ends. I hope you found this interesting and informative. This is our review of the course syllabus. I'm happy to take questions as time allows next week. If you have specific burning questions and you want to get in touch with me, we can certainly arrange for a Zoom meeting when I can answer any questions that you have. Sometimes really difficult to answer complicated questions about things like course outlines by email. If it's a really specific question, like is that an individual mark? Is that a group mark? Is that really the due date? I can answer that by email. But if you want to know more about the assignment, it's best to book a time to talk. So let's book a time to talk if you do have more questions. But there will be time for questions next week. Looking forward to seeing you. And that's it for this session.